The day I found out I was pregnant, Lambert excitedly spun me around several times. But at every subsequent checkup, he never accompanied me. I thought it was just because he was too busy with work. However, I accidentally overheard him talking to a friend. She's had a miscarriage before, with someone else. Honestly, just thinking about the fact that her womb has seen death makes me feel sick. Lambert rarely invited friends over for dinner. The living room was noisy, filled with the mingled scents of alcohol and tobacco. To avoid ruining their mood, I retreated to the bedroom. Lambert came in a few times, either bringing me chicken soup or freshly washed fruit. Finally, he brought me a cup of warm milk. When he entered, his friend shouted from outside the door, "I can't believe it. Who would have thought that Lambert, such a carefree guy, could be so attentive one day?" I felt my face flush instantly. Lambert laughed and scolded his friend, closing the door behind him. He watched me drink the milk and helped me lie back down in bed. Before leaving, he crouched down, resting his face against my belly, his voice gentle. "Sweetheart, is the baby being good? Not bothering you, right?" I nodded and shooed him away, yet my heart felt warm and fuzzy. Just as his friend said, Lambert, usually so carefree, had been treating me like I was precious since I got pregnant. Everyone remarked they had never seen him be so kind to anyone. I drifted off to sleep and woke up groggily. I turned over, finding the space beside me empty. Lambert hadn't returned to the bedroom yet. Muffled voices from the living room drifted in and out of my consciousness. As I opened the door, I caught Lambert's words, "It doesn't matter that she's not a virgin. The main thing is that she's lost a baby before, with another man." Honestly, just thinking about her womb having seen death makes me feel sick. I froze in place, my feet feeling like lead. Lambert hadn't drunk much, he was speaking from the heart. The phrase "her womb has seen death" gripped my nerves, making me tremble with cold. His best friend cleared his throat and asked, "So why did you marry her?" Lambert sighed with a bitter smile. I thought I could accept it. But after she got pregnant, I guess I just can't. After that, a deep silence enveloped them. The living room became so quiet I could almost hear their breathing. I couldn't see Lambert's face, nor could I imagine the disgust he must have felt as he said those words. Until I felt a slight movement in my belly, bringing me back to reality. I held back my tears and lay back down. The warmth in the blanket had faded considerably. I lay in bed, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. I never imagined Lambert would mind or feel disgusted. When we were together, I had been honest with him about being assaulted by a stranger. At that time, Lambert said, "How could I mind? I can't bear to see you hurt." I believed him. I thought we were adults, and being clear would suffice. I never expected that the adult world was filled with lies. Even if he seemed to love me wholeheartedly, it didn't stop him from casually using the word "sickening" to describe me in front of his friends. My heart felt as if it had been run over by a truck, suffocating and painful. The baby inside me kicked restlessly. I closed my eyes, trying to control my emotions, soothing him and myself. Lambert returned to bed after showering. It was already 3 in the morning. He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. When I tried to push him away, he let go. The smell of smoke and alcohol had nearly faded. He must have been out on the balcony for a while. "Good night, baby," he whispered softly, but it hit my heart hard. He loved me. Yet it felt like he didn't love me. Lambert left early in the morning. I hadn't slept all night, but I only opened my eyes after he was gone. The sunlight flooded the living room. On the dining table lay breakfast he made for me: scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, and a cup of warm milk. He even thoughtfully left a note, "There's your favorite millet porridge in the rice cooker." The man who had called me sick the day before turned around and treated me with such care. It left my thoughts swirling in confusion. I didn't have any issue with the breakfast. It was just that the happiness I once felt now tasted bland. I couldn't understand. He must love me, right? If he didn't, why would he do so many things that few people would? But if he loved me, why would he say those hurtful things and forget today's appointment? We had agreed yesterday afternoon that he would accompany me to the checkup. Lambert didn't answer my 3 calls. The mechanical voice on the line drained my patience. People are like that. Once there's a rift, it gives rise to many complex emotions. Like now, I couldn't shake off the bitterness and irritability within me. Yet every time Lambert had missed a checkup before, I had been able to accept it calmly, even convincing myself that he was simply busy with work. Just as I stepped outside, Lambert finally replied to my message with 3 hurried words, "In a meeting." Lambert must have truly forgotten my checkup date and probably the hospital too. So, when I ran into him at the obstetrics and gynecology department, he looked panicked and lost. I spotted him while waiting outside the imaging room for my ultrasound. He was walking shoulder to shoulder with a girl. To be precise, she had her arm linked through his. With tearful eyes, she looked at Lambert and said, "Lambert, it hurts so much. My stomach really hurts. Am I going to die?" "Don't say," Lambert began, but the words got stuck in his throat. He saw me, and I was smiling broadly. Our eyes met, and Lambert abruptly pulled his arm away. Nancy." He hurried to me, his voice trembling in a way he wasn't even aware of. But what was he afraid of? I took a step back, shifting my gaze to the girl's face. I felt like I had seen her somewhere, but I couldn't quite remember. Lambert stood in front of her, saying to me, "Baby, are you feeling unwell? Why did you come to the hospital?" Maybe even he found it ridiculous, his sentence faltered and never reached a conclusion. "I came for my checkup." I interrupted his awkward performance. The girl stepped out from behind him, meeting my eyes with a young and provocative gleam. "So you're Lambert's wife?" Lambert accompanied me into the examination room. The doctor called him in. "You never come for the checkups. Being pregnant isn't just your wife's responsibility. Now that you're in your later months, there are many important things to note. I'll mention a point, you write it down." The doctor's words were rather stern. Lambert pressed his lips together and nodded, jotting down note after note in his phone's memo. He kept apologizing as if each of his previous absences had been unintentional. But it wasn't until today that I realized he had done it on purpose. He didn't want to come to the checkups because he found me disgusting. Watching him type away, I suddenly recalled the day I found out I was pregnant. That day, I hid the pregnancy test stick behind me and softly hinted to Lambert, "I think I might be pregnant." Lambert practically jumped off the sofa, his eyes shining with uncontainable joy. He suddenly embraced me tightly, then seemed to remember to be gentle. When he saw the test stick, he spun me around in circles in the living room. I clearly remember that he was genuinely, truly happy that day. That's why he rushed me to the hospital first thing the next morning to register. Later, when filling out paperwork, the nurse asked if I had been pregnant before. I answered truthfully, not seeing the look on Lambert's face beside me. So, when he suddenly made an excuse to leave hastily, I naturally thought it was just work keeping him busy. Now that I think back, it feels like a needle piercing my heart, sending waves of pain throughout. When Lambert and I came out, the girl was still there. She was sitting on a bench, holding her stomach and looking down. I could clearly feel Lambert's body tense up and his nervousness in that moment. "Aren't you going to check on her?" I shifted to the side, creating some space between us. My voice wasn't loud, but the girl still heard me. Or maybe, despite her lowered head, her attention hadn't really left Lambert. She lifted her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Lambert, you finally came out." Lambert glanced at me, then walked over. He took her arm and brought her in front of me. "Nancy, I'll take Polly to see a doctor first. Can you go back by yourself?" Polly, now I remembered. A name I often saw on Lambert's mother's Instagram. I had asked Lambert about her. He said she was the daughter of our neighbors and had gone abroad after graduating high school. Just a couple of days ago, I saw on Instagram that she was back in the country. I studied her as she studied me. "Lambert, it's okay. I can go see the doctor by myself. You should stay with Nancy." Lambert's hand didn't release her arm, and his eyes showed a hint of displeasure as he looked at me. In that moment, I silently condemned Lambert in my heart. He repeated my name, Nancy. I smiled and nodded, "All right." Almost as soon as I got home, Lambert arrived. He tossed the car keys onto the entryway table, making a small noise as if to draw my attention. I sat on the sofa, not turning to look at him. "Baby, are you angry?" Don't misunderstand, I need to explain. He walked around to the back of the sofa, placing his hands on my shoulders. I didn't push his hands away, but suddenly wanted to hear how he would justify everything that happened at the hospital today. All right, go ahead. I shifted my gaze to the coffee table where a recent photo of us was displayed. He was cradling my pregnant belly, smiling brightly. But even that brightness felt fake. Polly just came back from abroad. Mom asked me to arrange an internship for her. My assistant is on maternity leave, so I thought she could give it a try. Don't worry, I'm 6 years older than her. To me, she's just a kid. Lambert moved to kneel in front of me, his large hand resting on my belly, through my clothes. His explanation was evasive. He didn't explain why he forgot my prenatal checkup or why he went to the hospital with her. Instead, he brushed over their closeness with a casual, "She's just a kid." I exhaled deeply, pushing Lambert's hand away. You feel guilty. I didn't say anything. The real heartbreak wasn't about the loud arguments. I leaned back on the sofa, watching Lambert busy in the kitchen, and couldn't help but laugh. Love, in the end, was reduced to weighing pros and cons. I weighed the timing for divorce while he weighed family, marriage, and so-called love. Maybe he really was feeling guilty. He was more attentive and caring than before. The dining table was filled with all my favorite dishes. He had given the housekeeper a day off and cooked himself. But even with such a delicious dinner, I couldn't taste anything. Lambert was actually a good cook. Back when we first got together, he almost took care of all our meals. From burning pots in the beginning to now being an excellent chef. After we got married, he got busier with work. Even after hiring a housekeeper, he maintained the habit of making breakfast himself every day. Lambert served a bowl of soup and placed it in front of me. Try it. I just learned this. I put down my chopsticks and brought the bowl to my lips, only to start gagging. Lambert was alarmed. He squatted down in front of me, his brows knitted together. Are you feeling unwell again? Didn't you stop morning sickness for a while? I'll take you to the hospital. Seeing Lambert's anxious expression, my tears finally fell. I thought to myself, if only I hadn't heard those words. Maybe things could still be the way they were before. But there are no ifs. Once a crack forms, there's no possibility of repair. It seemed my tears burned Lambert. He stopped leaving early for work and instead personally drove me to my workplace before going to his own. He no longer worked late, he picked me up after work, coming home to cook for us. Besides that incident at the hospital, I couldn't pinpoint his mistakes. Yet the more perfect he became, the more it highlighted his guilt. The thought of divorce lingered in my mind, day in and day out. Until that day, when Polly called. Lambert was still in the shower, but his phone kept ringing. I picked it up and saw an unknown number. After hanging up, she persistently called back. Lambert must have heard, as he shouted without thinking, "Baby, please answer the phone for me." Perhaps he never considered it could be Polly. Or maybe he never thought she would call at that moment. Lambert, I think I'm pregnant. Where are you? I want to see you. It was probably me who didn't hold the phone steady, as it slipped from my hand and crashed to the ground. The screen shattered like a spiderweb, and the voice on the other end abruptly cut off. I stood frozen in place. When Lambert came out drying his hair, he saw my dazed expression and the broken phone in the distance. I was confused. I was confused as to why I had thought I couldn't uncover his mistakes just a few days ago. And I was confused about how Lambert could divide his heart in two and remain so calm. Lambert cleaned up the shards on the floor and helped me back to the bedroom. He seemed unfazed, only asking, "Who was calling so late?" Questions circled my lips several times, but I swallowed them back. I shifted over on the bed and turned off one lamp. I didn't catch it, the phone just fell. You didn't save the number. I didn't dare look at Lambert's expression, fearing he'd notice something off about me. At least not now. I couldn't and shouldn't confront Lambert. It's okay, probably not important. I'll just buy a new one tomorrow. Let's sleep now, honey. Saying that, he pulled back the covers and was about to lie down. I stopped him. You should sleep in the guest room. I haven't been sleeping well these past few days. I'm not sure if it's because you snore. I casually made up a reason. In truth, Lambert was very quiet when he slept and didn't snore at all. He paused for a second, scratched his head, and chuckled. All right. Next time I bother you, just wake me up. I looked at him, gripping the blanket tighter. He even believed in his own snoring. Lambert grabbed a pillow and walked out. When the door closed behind him, I finally relaxed my grip. I turned off the light, unable to sleep through the night. I took a day off from work. Lambert wanted to stay home with me, but I sent him off to the office. After he left, I stepped out as well. I contacted a law firm specializing in divorce cases. The lawyer's expression was one of extreme surprise when I walked in. During pregnancy, only the woman has the right to file for divorce, either by agreement or through litigation. What made me hesitate was the baby in my belly. I once thought I could give him a happy home with a loving mother and caring father. But now, it seemed that wasn't possible. Are you ready to be a single mom? The lawyer, who looked to be about my age, handed me a cup of hot water. I pressed my lips together. I've made up my mind. I think I can be a good mom and play the role of a good dad. I didn't mention Lambert or Polly. Without evidence, I didn't want to make baseless accusations. I only asked her to help me create 2 proposals for property division. She probably understood. After all, they'd likely seen more than I was currently experiencing. After leaving the law firm, I returned to my mom's house. The bumpy drive took nearly an hour, bringing me to the countryside. When I arrived at the door, she was sitting on a low stool, preparing vegetables. Her hunched back and gray hair reminded me of the year she had taken my hand, resolutely divorcing my father and leaving that not-so-great home. My mom could do it. I thought I could too. I didn't go back. Lambert called several times. Baby, why aren't you at home? Why did you go to your mom's? Let me pick you up. His voice sounded a bit tired. Just as I was about to refuse, my mom grabbed the phone. Lambert, I haven't seen Nancy in ages. Nancy's staying with me for a couple of days, so don't worry. There's no need to call if nothing's urgent. She tossed the phone onto the table and sat down next to me. Her rough hand stroked my cheek, brushing away the tears from the corners of my eyes, bringing me a sense of peace like never before. It's okay, baby. I'm not asking why, Mom will always stand by you. If you want to live on your own, we can do that. Didn't I raise you all by myself? I cried and laughed at the same time. That's right. Without Lambert, I can still be just fine. After resting with my mom for 2 days and digesting all the negativity, I finally reached a state of acceptance about the divorce. I went to Lambert's company. As he hurried down from upstairs, Polly happened to come out of another elevator. She leaned against the wall, looking at me with a half-smile. Lambert didn't notice her. What are you doing here? Is the baby behaving? Has it been causing you trouble? I pulled my gaze from Polly back to Lambert and shook my head. Isn't it almost time for you to get off work? Give me the car keys, I'll wait for you in the car. I should be grateful for Lambert's trust. So when I initially installed the dashcam, I chose a dual-lens model, and he didn't object. So now he hadn't deleted the recordings, and I could find what I wanted in the footage. But the content was too clear. Clear like a knife, slicing through my heart, which I'd grown somewhat numb to. Lambert had rejected Polly. The first time, she threw herself into his arms, but he pushed her away. The second time, she leaned in closer to his face, and he pushed her away again. The third time, when she kissed him, he didn't push her away this time. He held the back of her head, kissing her passionately. That was also when their car drove into the hotel's underground garage early in the morning. They walked to the elevator together and didn't appear until around 1 in the afternoon, a gap of 3 to 4 hours. That day was when he forgot to accompany me to my prenatal checkup but showed up at the hospital with Polly. For some reason, I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. When Lambert opened the driver's door, I was already squinting against the seat. He cast a somewhat apologetic glance outside the passenger window. That's when I noticed that Polly was just a door away from me. Nancy, Mom just called us back for dinner. Perfect timing. I straightened up and glanced at Polly outside the door. She was tightly gripping her bag, smiling a bit forcedly, and her voice dropped. Lambert, I can manage. Polly wanted to sit in the front passenger seat. She ended up in the back, resting her head against the window, dry heaving for a while. She said she was carsick and asked if she could sit in the back. I saw a flicker of hesitation in Lambert's eyes. I pointed at my protruding belly and shook my head. No, it's not convenient. Lambert didn't say anything else, but drove slowly. Slower than usual when I rode with him alone. He occasionally glanced at the rearview mirror, a perfect angle to observe Polly's mood. Their relationship seemed to be developing faster than I had imagined. I closed my eyes, pretending not to see anything. It wasn't until we entered Lambert's parents' home and met his mother's astonished gaze that I realized I had misunderstood. In Lambert's words, we referred to him and Polly. And I was merely the unexpected guest. A chilling realization crawled up my heart almost instantly, spreading throughout my body. I thought I wouldn't care. But seeing their contrasting attitudes toward me and Polly, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Lambert's parents had never liked me. They said I was a child from a single-parent family and must be lacking something. Eventually, due to Lambert's insistence, we got married. But they rarely invited us over for dinner. Neither of us wanted that. Only when I got pregnant did our relationship improve. Watching Polly laugh joyfully between them, I suddenly understood. Those frequent appearances of Polly on Instagram were perhaps meant for me to see. They had never liked me. Maybe because I was an uninvited guest, they spoke in dialect during dinner. A dialect I used to not understand at all. After secretly learning it for a long time, I could understand it now. But since I rarely saw them, I said nothing. No one knew, including Lambert. Weren't you supposed to be just you and Polly? Why is she here too? Polly, eat more, you look so thin. The food abroad isn't good, is it? I specially made you rib soup, you should try it. Lambert's mother spoke quickly and urgently. It took me a moment to comprehend. She really liked Polly, it seemed. She kept giving Lambert meaningful looks, urging him to serve Polly more food. Even Lambert's usually taciturn father was talking more than usual, smiling at Polly with crinkled eyes. Polly, stay put while you're back home. Don't go out. What a shame, we thought about bringing you back to be Lambert's wife. Right, Lambert? I lowered my head and absent-mindedly shoved some rice into my mouth. Lambert chuckled awkwardly, serving me some food. Nancy, try Mom's cooking. Lambert's actions seemed to remind them, and the topic abruptly changed, becoming forced. I pretended not to understand and didn't eat what Lambert served afterward. The dinner continued with each of us lost in our thoughts. I had no idea what Lambert was thinking. But I knew it was almost time to confront him. If Lambert's mother hadn't insisted that he safely drop Polly off at home, I probably wouldn't have known that Polly lived in the same community as us. Just a floor apart. As the elevator stopped on the 18th floor, Polly turned back to glance at me. Lambert, thank you for bringing me back. I'll head home now. She waved her hand and smiled sweetly. As the elevator doors closed, Lambert relaxed his straightened back. Your parents really like her. I casually remarked as the elevator door opened again. Lambert halted, his hand on my arm retracting slightly. Yeah. They've always wanted a daughter. I nodded, not saying anything else. Perhaps sensing my mood had dropped, Lambert had been trying to cheer me up since he returned. The more he tried, the calmer I became. Maybe he didn't even realize that whenever Polly was around, he would refer to me as Nancy instead of baby. When he went to take a shower, he tossed his phone onto the couch. The unlock password was my birthday. The wallpaper was a picture of us together. Only I was pinned at the top of message. Even his IG background and most of the content were about me. I closed my eyes and opened the chat with Polly. Lambert, I don't need you to take responsibility. I know a girl's first time is important, I did it willingly. I just feel uncomfortable, I want to throw up. I've never been pregnant, and we didn't use protection that day, I'm just worried. Lambert, I think I'm really falling for you. Just as I exited the chat, Polly sent a message. A red notification, only a brief ellipsis. The suddenly appearing ellipsis. Like a secret signal. I glanced out the window. The night was shrouded in moonlight, hazy and indistinct. Lambert came out of the shower and grabbed his phone from the couch. By his actions, he seemed to have opened the message and then closed it again. I leaned back on the sofa, the lychee in my mouth too sweet to handle. About 2 minutes later, Lambert came out with a garbage bag from the kitchen. "Baby, I'm going to take out the trash. If you're tired, go to sleep." Before I could respond, he pushed the door open and walked out. The elevator door opened and closed again. I stood at the door, watching the elevator stop on the 18th floor and start descending. I didn't follow, but walked to the balcony. Lambert and Polly exited the building one after the other. The streetlights stretched their shadows long. Until I walked far away, the shadows overlapped, making it hard to see clearly. I went to the storage room and pulled out the suitcase. There were only a few clothes that Lambert usually wore, which I tossed in haphazardly. I also packed his documents and laptop. I dragged the suitcase downstairs. The summer night breeze felt warm against my skin, yet I was engulfed in a chilling sensation. As night fell, the lights in the community automatically dimmed. I don't know how long it took, but finally, Lambert appeared, coming closer from a distance. Polly followed behind him, her expression unreadable. From afar, our three gazes met, and they came to a stop. Lambert stood at the door, repeatedly calling my name. Unfortunately, the neighbor across the hall was abroad, so no one came out to scold him. Through the peephole, I saw Polly gripping the suitcase handle tightly, standing by the elevator door. Lambert couldn't get in. Before coming downstairs, I deleted his fingerprint access. "Nancy, can you let me explain?" "Nancy, please don't do this, I'm scared." Lambert kept repeating those lines. The word scared sounded almost like a joke. Who would openly admit to being scared? Bored with his pleas, I returned to my bedroom. Maybe the heavy stone pressing on my chest had finally shifted, because I slept well that night. Lambert didn't wait at the door anymore. I don't know when he left, his suitcase was still outside. I went to the law firm and picked up the final version of the divorce agreement. When I arranged to meet Lambert, my lawyer accompanied me. I chose a coffee shop that wasn't too crowded. Sitting on the second floor by the window, I saw Lambert rushing over. My lawyer followed my gaze and took a sip of her coffee. "Maybe I should talk to him later," she suggested. I shook my head. "No, I can handle it." Ever since that day he had belittled me with a disgusting comment, I had considered divorce. My hesitation didn't stem from love for Lambert. I just didn't know how to equip our unborn child with armor to shield him from cold stares and discrimination as he grew. Only after my mom's words did I realize. The love I could give my child was the armor. Lambert couldn't bear to look at the divorce agreement. "Nancy, who's this?" His voice trembled slightly. It was rare for someone he didn't know to be beside me. He always remembered my friends and colleagues. "Hello, Mr. Lambert. I'm Rita, Nancy's attorney." As the business card was pushed in front of him, the color drained from his face bit by bit. "Take a look, if everything's fine, just sign. There's no dispute about the child's custody, check the property division." I cradled a cup of hot milk, sipping it absent-mindedly, as if discussing something trivial. "Nancy, can we talk alone?" "Miss Rita, would that be okay?" Lambert's gaze flickered, his voice growing hoarse. "No need, Rita knows what she should and shouldn't know. Just say what you have to say, the lawyer's here to help evaluate any changes." I placed my cup on the table, my tone calm. A flicker of struggle crossed Lambert's eyes, and after a long pause, he spoke. "It was just once with Polly. I regret it, Nancy. I never meant to betray you. It was just a moment." I interrupted him. "You only found me disgusting because I had a miscarriage. You could have continued to reject Polly, but you didn't. You chose to give up on me, on our child. That doesn't sound right, though. Actually, when I heard you say I was disgusting, I knew I couldn't stay with you anymore. Whether or not Polly existed, I would have divorced you. It was I who gave you up. If you insist on not getting divorced, we may consider litigation. Mr. Lambert, you might want to think it over." Lambert refused to divorce. the lawyer routinely reminded him. I stood up from my seat and, before leaving, took off my wedding ring. Lambert. We could do this more gracefully. There's no need for a scene that leaves everyone looking bad, right? Through the floor-to-ceiling window, I glanced at Polly waiting downstairs. I wasn't sure what Lambert truly felt for her. He said it was a moment of weakness. Later, he considered distancing himself from Polly, drawing a line. But for some reason, things spiraled beyond his control. He seemed unable to shake her off. So he treated me even better than before, as if that might ease his guilt. He claimed he never found me repulsive, but couldn't explain why it suddenly felt impossible to continue. In truth, he didn't need to struggle. The moment he started struggling, we were destined to end. Can love lead to separation in the end? Turns out, it can. I applied for remote work at the company, and soon I could take maternity leave. My mom came over to our home, helping me pack up what I needed and move out. I rented an apartment nearby, and a nanny came a few times a week. My mom moved in with me. Before I moved out, Lambert came back a few times. As soon as I brought out the divorce agreement, he fled in a panic. Later, when he realized I had moved, he called me multiple times. But until he agreed to the divorce, I refused to meet him. Lambert stopped my mom at the supermarket. He followed her home all the way. He stood at the entrance, caught between wanting to come in and wanting to leave. My mom, face darkened, went into the kitchen, chopping vegetables with a loud thud. I turned and went into the bedroom, coming out with a revised version of the divorce agreement from my lawyer. You're just in time. The property division part has been amended, take a look. If it's fine, just sign it. Originally, my lawyer suggested I keep the house. She worried about me moving during late pregnancy, considering formaldehyde, and the current house had a great location. After thinking for a long time, I realized I probably couldn't accept living in the house that Lambert had once occupied. I asked the lawyer to convert it to cash based on market value, taking the larger share. I placed the agreement on the console table and set down a pen beside it. Nancy, please don't do this. We have a child, you can't let him be born without a father. Nancy, I really have cut ties with Polly, I swear. Lambert grasped my arm. He didn't use much force, yet I still stopped. Lambert, I grew up without a dad. And I don't want my child to have a father like you. I shot him a cold glance. If looks could kill, I imagined he would have been shredded by now. No, Nancy. That's not what I meant, I truly understand my mistakes. I never wanted to separate, I was just careless. You can hit or scold me. Please don't abandon me, okay? You and the baby can't just dismiss me. Lambert still didn't sign. When he left, he greeted us. My mom ignored him, sternly calling me to dinner. Before we finished eating, Lambert's parents arrived. I had no idea how they found me. Nancy, open the door. Who do you think you are to divorce my son? Even if you divorce, the child in your belly is still ours, and you can't take him away. Lambert's mother shouted from outside, cursing. My mom's expression turned cold instantly. She rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and ran to the door, just like she did when protecting me as a child. When the door opened, Lambert's mother fell silent. Then came a piercing scream. My mom stood at the door, sneering, "Try shouting again." I stepped in to mediate. Marriage has never been just between two people. It dawned on me that all those romantic notions about love conquering all couldn't stand against the mundane reality of life. Divorce is best for both of us. If you don't like me, I don't want to please you either. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention. I actually understood everything you said at dinner that day. Surprised? To fit into your family, I learned your dialect. Lambert happened to arrive just as I finished speaking. He opened his mouth, forcing a bitter smile. It was on the day of my routine checkup that Lambert agreed to the divorce. At 30 weeks pregnant, I was scheduled for a 4-dimensional ultrasound. He met me at the hospital. The doctor glanced at Lambert and smiled approvingly. He looked at me with a pleading expression. Nancy, can I just take a look? Please? Consider it a favor. He still followed me into the ultrasound room. The baby's four-dimensional ultrasound images appeared on the screen, and Lambert's eyes were already red. The doctor said the baby was healthy. He had a sharp chin, just like mine. His little legs were long, he would grow up to be tall like his dad. Lambert broke down in tears and then rushed out. The doctor didn't notice anything unusual and joked that Lambert was just overly emotional. I forced a smile, pushing down the last bit of bitterness inside. This was probably Lambert's first and last time seeing the child. The checkup went smoothly. Lambert also signed the divorce agreement. I rented a place near the office. You and your mom can move back. When the baby is born, we'll need a nanny, and a bigger house will be more convenient. I've arranged for postpartum recovery sessions, I just hadn't had a chance to tell you. I'll have them contact you later. His voice got lower with each word until he finally fell silent. I never doubted Lambert's sincerity, I just didn't need it anymore. No need for that. I found a place I like and have already paid the deposit. I'm looking for a nanny myself, so just refund the postpartum recovery fees. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 a.m. tomorrow. On the day I gave birth, my mom paced back and forth outside the delivery room. She told me Lambert had come too. After hearing that both mother and baby were safe, he left. I nodded, my gaze falling on the small, pink bundle beside me. The baby was very well behaved. I hardly had to exert myself during the delivery. It's a boy, he can protect mommy when he grows up. When the nurse brought him to me, I couldn't hold back my tears. I had my little armor. Before he grew up, I would be his armor too. Later, I found out that Polly was really pregnant. Lambert's parents were thrilled. They urged Lambert to marry Polly, fearing she would be wronged. But Lambert was unwilling. He didn't want to marry Polly, nor did he want that child. Both families nearly tore each other apart over this, making it a public scandal. Polly went to the hospital for an abortion anyway. Lambert accompanied her. I guess Lambert never expected that the thing he once found disgusting was now what he was doing himself. End.